In this morning with the tragedy in Colorado. 6 hours from now, the suspect, 24-year-old James Holmes, is scheduled to make his first court appearance since the Friday movie theater shooting that left 12 people dead and 58 injured. Officials say the alleged shooter is not cooperating and a motive is still not clear. Police say they've finished collecting evidence from the suspect's apartment that was booby-trapped with a complex array of explosives. The Associated Press reports that investigators also found a Batman mask in the apartment. The rest of the apartment building remains shut down due to chemical hazards. We've also learned the suspect applied to join a local gun range last month, but was rejected after the club's owner heard what he described as a bizarre message on the alleged gunman's voicemail. President Obama flew into Aurora yesterday afternoon to meet privately with victims' families and to show his support.
I confessed to them that words are always inadequate in these kinds of situations, but that my main task was to serve as a representative of the entire country and let them know that we are thinking about them at this moment and will continue to think about them each and every day. I also tried to assure them that although the perpetrator of this evil act has received a lot of attention over the last couple of days, that attention will fade away. And in the end, after he has felt the full force of our justice system, what will be remembered are the good people who were impacted by this tragedy.
And the tragedy in Colorado has reignited the debate over gun control. Police say the ammunition, gear, and 4 weapons used in the attack, including an assault rifle, are believed to have been purchased legally. The suspect apparently received up to 50 packages in the mail in the 4 months leading up to the attack. He purchased 6,000 rounds of ammunition over the internet. One law enforcement official says the massacre could have been far worse if the shooter's semi-automatic rifle hadn't jammed, as investigators believe it had. New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg yesterday called on the 2 presidential candidates to lead a national debate on gun control.
Somebody's got to do something about this, and this requires, and particularly in a presidential year, the candidates for President of the United States to stand up and once and for all say, yes, they feel terrible. Yes, it's a tragedy. Yes, we have great sympathy for the families, but it's time for this country to do something. And that's the job of the President of the United States. And I don't know what they're going to do, but I think it's incumbent on them to tell us specifically, not just in broad terms. It's time, I think, that we hold them accountable and say, okay, you want our votes. What are you going to do?
But others like Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper expressed doubt that more gun regulation would prevent shootings like the one Friday in Aurora.
If you look at this person, this, again, almost a creature. I mean, if he could have gotten access to the guns, what kind of bomb would he have manufactured? I mean, we're in a time of an information age where there's access to all kinds of information, and he was diabolical, right? Demonic in this twisted sense that he just, I mean, I think of him almost as a terrorist, right? He wanted to take away not just the people in that theater, but from the country, our ability to enjoy life, to go to a movie theater, which is, for most of us, is a refuge where we can get away from the rest of some of the pressures of life. And, you know, I'm not sure, it's a human issue in some way. How are we not able to identify someone like this who's so deeply, deeply disturbed?
Deeply disturbed person. By the way, Joe, Mayor Bloomberg's going to be on the show a little later on, so we can talk more with him about that. But certainly extremely convoluted issue.
What is a convoluted issue, and that's why, and I think a lot of Americans would like to see play itself out later. Let families bury their dead loved ones and take care of those that are still struggling for life in hospitals right now. It's always unbecoming after every shooting that both sides will come out and decide that now is the perfect time to have the gun control debate. And I've got to say I agree with the governor that that's a mental health issue, and that the United States doesn't do enough in this area on mental health, and it's But again, this is a debate. I personally believe, let's have this debate in a week. Let's have this debate in 2 weeks. When you start seeing editorials on both sides deciding to weigh in when people are dying, it's just unfortunate. I do want to say that the president, I liked seeing the president do what presidents really do best, and that is comfort in a time of need, whether it was Ronald Reagan during the Challenger accident, whether it was Bill Clinton after Oklahoma City, George W. Bush standing on the pile of rubble after 9/11. Only a president can do what Barack Obama did, and that is talk to those affected by such unspeakable tragedy and bring at least a little bit of comfort.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think in terms of the gun control debate, though, Steve Ratner, one of the arguments that Mayor Bloomberg has is that, and Joe's point is well taken, it's always right after these events that everyone seizes the moment to jump on the debate. But the argument Bloomberg has is that Obama hasn't had this debate, that he has not taken this on. So if not now, when?
Well, it's not an issue at the moment, but I agree with Joe that there is a period of mourning, if you will, where it's probably not exactly the right time. I agree with Joe and others who are saying it's not just a gun problem, it's a social problem, it's a problem of identifying in these young kids those that may be problematic. I get the fact that there are 150 million guns out there, but I don't for the life of me understand what legitimate purpose anyone has for carrying an assault weapon, what legitimate purpose anyone has for carrying a semi-automatic pistol. And the idea that we don't have laws about that I find remarkable. And I do agree with you that when you look back after the tragic shooting of Ronald Reagan and the Jim Brady campaign and the progress that was made off of that tragedy, I think you want good things to come from tragedies. You want to make the best of a terrible situation. And I do agree with the mayor. I think it's time for both the presidential candidates to stay where they are on this issue and hopefully make some progress on it, because it's really inexcusable that we as a country could be in this position.
It's so interesting, Joe, when you look at these cases, the mental health aspects of it, you could list issues with this young man that clearly should be warning signs, but they always seem so clear in retrospect, don't they?
Well, there's no doubt about it. And you know, I looked at the Virginia Tech shooter. I look at this shooter. So many shooters like this are young males. In fact, before, of course, you don't want to generalize, but as soon as I heard about this shooting, I knew who it was. I knew it was a young, white male, probably to an affluent neighborhood, disconnected from society. It happens time and time again. And I think a lot of it has to do, again, most of it has to do with mental health. You have these people that are somewhere, I believe, probably on the autism scale. I don't know if that's the case here, but it happens more often than not. People that can walk around in society, that can function on college campuses, can even excel on college campuses, but are socially disconnected. I have a son who has Asperger's, who is loved by everybody in his family and who is wonderful, but it is for those that may not have a loving family and a support group and may be a bit further along on the autism. An extraordinarily frustrating, terrible challenge day in and day out. And so I do think, again, I don't know the specifics about this young man, but we see too many shooters in these type of tragedies bearing the same characteristics mentally. So that's why I feel the way I do about healthcare. John Heilman, though, and Mark Halperin, we really have had a debate about gun control, and we've had a debate over the past 20 years, and the supporters of gun control have lost. I remember back in the 90s, after a similar tragedy, having a debate, and actually watching conservative Democrats stand up. I think at the time it was John Dingell and John Murtha, who stood up and killed President Clinton's effort at further gun control. I think this debate has been had.
Well, there's no question that the example of what happened in 1994, when a lot of Democrats, at least by conventional wisdom, lost their seats, because of the efforts that President Clinton pursued to do gun control. That kind of killed the appetite for a lot of people to have this debate. The NRA is an extraordinarily powerful interest group in Washington. Some people think it's the most powerful interest group. But, to come back to Steve's point, I think there's got to be a way to have a conversation that's not necessarily about gun control, but is about things that I think most Americans think would be sensible regulation. This guy bought 3,000 rounds of handgun ammunition, 3,000 rounds for an assault rifle, 350 shells for a 12-gauge shotgun,
oh my God,
and a drum magazine large enough to hold 100 rounds capable of firing 50 or 60 rounds per minute. Now, I just don't understand how the Second Amendment, every amendment in our Bill of Rights and Constitution has reasonable limits on it. There must be some way in which, whether through taxation or at least through notification, when people go out and buy vast quantities of ammunition and these kinds of specialist clips that don't have anything to do about self-defense or about hunting, there must be ways in which we can have some regulation that, of course, would not prevent tragedies, because there are crazy people who do crazy things. But let's make it a little bit harder. Let's just make it a little bit harder. Even if on the margins we won't stop all the crazy people who want to do crazy things, but even if we stop one out of 10 or out of 15 or out of 20 because we know that someone's gone out and bought this vast amount of it. Somebody goes and does an investigation, we stop one person. It just doesn't seem to me that unreasonable. And I don't think that it's an issue where the vast majority of the country would object to that kind of regulation. Or I actually think probably a large number of people explained in this way. I think you would have a pretty sensible majority for some kinds of modest restrictions. And again, even if it's just notification, taxation.
Well, the problem
might have a good effect.
Is, the NRA is acting like Grover Norquist. The NRA is basically taking this absolute position that they're afraid, rightly or wrongly, I think wrongly, I hope wrongly, that any change along the lines of what you're talking about to deal with the most egregious cases is an encroachment that will lead to more and more things happening.
Where we are now, it's going to take a Republican to do this. There's no Democratic leader who will take this on, as evidenced by the current president.
All right, we're going to move on to other news. A couple more stories to report this morning. Today, the NCAA is expected to announce